What is a death doula? In the modern perspective, a death doula attends and walks with those who are at the end of their life. Throughout history, though, death doulas held a much larger role around death. Death doulas were the bridge between the physical plane and the plane of spirits. Their work included walking with the dead, as well as walking with those who were dying. They served as necromancers, communication, not raising the dead back into physical form. Let's be realistic. As reapers, walking the soul to their next journey after it left the body, and as the guardians of the dead while they prepared for their rebirth. They helped those left behind in their grief to heal. They helped the living to access memories from their past lives in order to gain a deeper understanding of their whole self and accessing the skills that lay dormant within. They were also the ones people turned to for major transformations in their life, because the path of death and rebirth is larger than just your physical death, and we experience it many times in one lifetime. Death doulas are healers of the soul. Modern death doulas are centered more around science than spirituality. The majority of the training courses out there revolve around a healthcare perspective, working from the framework of psychology and physical body. This isn't a bad thing, and that perspective is needed in the work, but the work also needs to go beyond it, because it is the soul that lives beyond it. My training as a death doula started from a medical perspective. A CCRN who was dealing and walking people through what we call emergent death. Every death taught me something different, but they all showed me one thing. The way we train death doulas from this perspective is not enough. We were doing a disservice to both the dying and the living left behind due to just using this clinical approach. The ancient traditions and approaches of death doula work was very different. They focused on the body in similar ways for comfort measures, but they placed a higher focus on the soul, healing and preparing the soul for the journey ahead, walking along with them even after the death of the body. They also were not confined to just the dying. People in all walks of life came to them for all kinds of services that dealt with the journey and transformation of the soul. As I grew my own practices, I blended the true approaches and expanded upon them. I'm always surprised when people think death doula work, especially in the magical and spiritual community, is only the physical dying work. It's understandable because most training only focuses there. But there is so much more. These are just a few examples, but hopefully they'll start to give you another expanded perspective. So, paranormal investigating. Much of this field in modern perspective is about gathering proof and less about working with the spirits. With that being said, though, we are seeing a rise in mediums and healers in the field. Work of a death doula. A death doula can add crucial elements to these teams, not only from a communication standpoint, but also helping the spirits. Whether it is healing the soul that is needed, cutting the strings that binding them there, shifting the energies of the place and the land itself to stop attracting those types of energies, or identifying the reason behind their presence. A death doula can play a crucial role on those teams. They can also help to cleanse and clear spaces when needed. When it comes to therapy, shadow work, past lives, the skills of a death doula are those of transformative work. Therapists can use them to enhance their own practices, combining the approaches to serve the whole person, to go deeper, to get to the core behind the issues, allowing true healing and transformation of them. Those who are moving through their own shadow work, their own deconstruction of the self, healing traumas, creating their own foundations, and then rebirthing the new self, will find skills and tools in the death doula path to do just that. Learning about the two sides of body and soul, the way the mind works between them, and how to bring them into alignment. Connecting the ancestral soul, all the lives they lived before, and what has been carried forward into this one. Because not all that needs to be healed comes from this life. Understanding the framework for a death and rebirth transformation, because it is the same framework used in shadow work. The ancestral soul is the part of us that holds all the lives we lived before, including all the memories and skills we have developed in each. It is the legacy of the soul, what we are contributing to in this life, and we will be passing on to the next life. It is not just about healing, though. This is about accessing and raising those aspects of ourselves for positive effects and advancing ourselves in this life. Death doulas have the ability to guide others in this process, using effective tools and skills to get real results. Spirit communicators, mediums. I believe everyone has the ability to connect and clearly communicate back and forth with the unseen. Spirits, deity, souls that have passed on, these kinds of things. The ability is there. Developing and using it, though, can be difficult, especially in our modern world. Death doulas, trained in the spiritual aspects of the work, have developed a path to help others on this journey. Structures and exercises to enhance our psychic senses, our soul senses, and reprogram the mind to process that information the same as it does for our physical ones. The first steps to clear and accurate communication with the unseen. Death doulas walk with the person as they discover the unseen worlds, how to maneuver within them, and forge their own path in working with the spirits. Although all these planes overlap and share, they work differently in many ways. For the energy healers out there are many names and traditions around energy healing. Each one, though, is focused on the energy of a person in order to heal the physical and emotional issues of that person. Death doula skills can expand upon the knowledge of the energies and give new perspectives for the modes of healing. I currently have a student who is a Reiki master that is developing a new kind of death Reiki, focusing on the ancestral soul, healing the soul, and physical healing. She is also working on it from the perspective of long-term diseases and autoimmune healing possibilities. It's really fascinating in a perspective and approaches. So, a death emissary versus a modern death doula. As I said, there are a few different ways people can use their death doula skills. If their skills are a blended practice of modern and ancient techniques, these are the emissaries of death in all its forms. There is knowledge and skills in modern death doula practice that is important to doing the work for our dying and for our grieving. They also give us science and deeper understandings of the physical body that can help us in the work with the soul. The problem I see with most, if not all, modern death doula courses is that they still keep a very clinical approach to the process, cutting out or diminishing the spiritual. The ones I have seen that included those pieces have done so from a very Christian or Abrahamic perspective. That's still leaving out a large portion of the people and the expanded services such as the ones that we were just talking about. Ones that a real death emissary can provide. I have been a death doula for 20 years. First in a clinical sense and then as a death emissary. The blended death doula. Not only do I find it very rewarding work, but the journey itself also transformed me. One of my students recently said, "It occurs to me that we are doing our own death work within ourselves, letting go of the old self, shedding the layers, and celebrating the growth of the new." This is very true in my death emissary course. We need more death emissaries and death doulas for the magical, pagan, and animistic communities.